Hello everybody, hope you're well. My name is Gavin Mkabela, and today's video we're going to talk about buying property below market value. So this could be buying property for your primary use, so meaning that you'll be living in that property, or buying this property for investment purposes, meaning that you're going to be renting it out so that then people pay you rent, right? So it's business at the end of the day. Now, in the previous video that I made, I talked about market value. So I defined it and I talked about how to establish the market value of a property. But of course, for the sake of this video, I'm going to touch on it again. So a market value of a property is simplified. It is an average price that people are willing to pay for a particular property type in a particular area. So it's an average price that people are willing to pay for a particular property type in a particular area. So let me make an example. So you'll find that in the north, so I'll just simplify that. In the north, normally people would buy a 2-bedroom flat with 1 bathroom with 1 carport for 600,000 rand, right? So that's what people are normally willing to pay. And when you see maybe the stats, you will see that in the past, that's what they bought this property type for, right? So that now has established that market value. So now in the previous video, I spoke about, different ways that you can be able to use to establish that. So to come up to that 600,000. Now I talked about 3 platforms that you can be able to use, or 3 processes that you can be able to use. Number 1, I talked about using property listing sites. So you can go on the net and then you can be able to look at all these property listing sites where sellers are advertising their properties for sale, and you can be able to then check in terms of the properties that have been listed there. So of course that can give you an averaging to see, okay, in the north, pretty much the averaging price there is around 600,000. So that's normally what these properties are priced at. So that's number 1. So using property listing sites. And number 2, I mentioned the issue of using local agents. So I'll emphasize on local. So use local agents because they know the area, right? And a lot of them have been there for a long time. So they pretty much know exactly, what will be the market value. But don't use just one agent. So I normally talk about using 3 or more agents in that particular area that you can be able to then sort of get a benchmark of what the market value is sitting at. And then the last one is talking about property reports. So this, property listing sites, some of them or a lot of them do provide for property reports, which will detail exactly how many properties has been sold in that area, for how much. And of course, a lot of the times you need to pay for that report. But there are, companies that are dedicated exactly for doing market research on property, especially around sales and all of that stuff in particular areas. So you can be able to go to those sites, use those companies and print out the report, which again, you're most likely going to pay for that. And it will give you all the data that you need. So those 3 are very important. Of course, there's a lot of them, but I touched on those 3. So that's how then you can then establish what your market value, what the market value is for the property type that you are looking for in this specific area. But today then we're talking about now you going into negotiations. Now you've seen this property, it's been listed for a certain amount, and now you want to buy below that because you have established that, okay, that is the market value. Now let's now use 600,000 as the benchmark. So you see this property, it's going for 600,000, right? So this property is going for 600,000. So it has all the specs that you need. So it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, 67 square meters, to just be technical about it. And then it has 1 carport, right? In this particular area that you like. Now, whether you're buying it for primary, as I said, or buying it for investment purposes. So 600,000, this is our market value, right? So this is what normally this property are being sold for. So of course I want to buy it below that, which is obviously my intention going into this negotiation. So I'm going to be able to approach the seller or the agent, whatever it is, on there to say, okay, cool, I need to be able to buy it below that. Now the most important thing after that, when you're now going into this negotiation, is that you need to be able to establish whether there are bond and transfer cost. right? So bond registration cost and transfer cost. So that's also a big thing, right? To be able to establish that, to say, okay, am I going to pay transfer cost and bond registration cost? Because it's also a cost, right? So you agree with me there, right? So let's say the cost there is 50,000. So I'll just use an example of 50,000 just for this example's sake, but you can go into the net. Yeah, there are obviously these property listing sites, and a lot of them do have bond and transfer calculators, so you can be able to do that. Financing house like the banks also do have calculators as well, so you can be able to type in terms of the 600,000, and it will then give you exactly how much you need to be able to pay for the transfer and bond cost. So this is a cost that needs to come out, so you need to be able to remove it. So now I'll need to take it out of this price, so meaning that at the end of the day I'm left with 550,000. So if now I'm buying below my market value, then I need to subtract that, right? So I need to subtract my bond and transfer cost. But there is as well, maybe at times you'll find that I need to improve on this property, so then there will be improvement costs, right? So those also needs to be looked at. So if this property needs some fixing, I need to do all of these things, I need to be able to take at that cost. So that is why it's important, especially when you're buying property from somebody. So you're buying it from a seller, it's an existing property. Ideally, especially if you are not trained to see certain things, go with the contractor, go with somebody that is skilled, that can check to say, oh, okay, the plumbing is correct, the roofing is okay, so they'll be able to look at all of these things and then establish to say, all right, no, nothing needs to be fixed, or just minor things needs to be fixed. But of course, if there's big things that needs to be fixed, at the end of the day, you look at that cost, which can then push you way over the market value, which then becomes a problem. But again, you need to establish exactly what you need to do with that property, because at times, it's okay to buy within market value. It's not that all the time we need to be buying below market value. Sometimes we buy within market value because we are buying a future opportunity, in terms of we can see this area is going to develop over time. There's going to be so many things coming up. So the chances of the value of this property going up, is very, very high. So I would buy it within market value, and then I'll hold it for a certain while. And then of course, then, the property value goes up. Then in that manner, I can be able to maybe to sell it if I want to sell it for a profit, or I can have equity sitting in that property, right? So there's different reasons why we get into property deals, and it's always important to establish exactly what is the objective at the end of the day, so you can then be able to buy the future opportunity. Or at times it's really just in terms of you are buying as well the opportunity within the property itself. So you'll find that this is a house, you're buying it at market value, but it has a big yard. So that big yard, you can be able to extend for your primary home, or you can be able to then build, different structures within this property for rental purposes, which will then maximize your rental income. So you get what I'm at? That can definitely. So you also buy, you are buying the land as well. So actually you're buying the land. You say this is the property. There's a structure already in that in this property, but of course there's a big yard that I can still utilize at the end of the day. So that is also very important. So for today, I'm really going to touch on those two, so look at your transfer and bond cost, and you look at your improvement cost, right? So because at the end of the day, if you are, you get excited to say, yo, I bought this property for 500,000, but now you need to be able to spend 300,000 fixing it, then, again, it becomes a problem, unless of course, if there's objective behind that. So you already know exactly why you are buying that, because maybe you're gonna extend it, for maximizing your income for investment purposes, or you just want to build a dream home for your family at the end of the day. So, but I always see that a lot of times people don't look at this, the transfer and the bond registration cost. These are very, very important. And again, depending on how you buy this property, whether you're gonna be buying it you're gonna buy it via finance, you're gonna buy it via cash, so it's always important to understand this, because it's money that's gonna be coming out of your own pocket. Because technically, think about it. If now I buy this property for 600,000, and at the end of the day, I still need to to pay the transfer cost, the transfer and the bond cost. So technically I'm buying this property for 650. So actually I would be buying it over the market value. You get what I'm saying? And maybe I still need to improve upon this property, then that's another additional cost on top of that. So let's be mindful of these two, especially these two. You know, there's still other things that you need to look at, but this two, which is the bond registration cost, the transfer cost, and the improvement cost. If there are things that needs to be fixed in that property, we need to take that into account, because then it needs to get us to the total amount that we actually gonna be paying for this property. So ideally, if you want to then buy below market value, even if there is improvements there, is that so let me extend on this. So the property is 600,000. My bond costs and transfer costs are sitting at 50,000, and let's say the improvements will be 100,000. Okay, so you see already I have 50k, I have 100,000, which is now 150. So it means that from this amount here, I need to subtract that 150,000. So when I go into to negotiate, I'm negotiating basically below that, you know, having subtracted the 150,000 from the selling amount, which is 600,000. So those are the things that we definitely need to look at. I know it's a bit just a simplified version of how to do it, but these two things I really believe that are very, very, very important to know. A lot of people don't take into account all of these things, and then they find themselves having paid a lot of money for this property, and at the end of the day is also maybe a problem that you can't even sell it, you know, for all this amount that you've put into that property, because the market still dictates that you're going to be selling it at 600,000. So then you find yourself having a headache there and maybe possibly making a loss on that property. So it's always important to understand these things, right? Make sure that your costs are subtracted before you make an offer in terms of that property, especially if you're buying below market value. Take a qualified contractor that can see exactly what's going on there. Is there anything that needs to be improved? And then they can give you their honest opinion around it. And I also just want to mention that, you know, because maybe you might also be asking what are the benefits on top of everything else of buying below market value. You know, they also, you know, the advantages is that there will be equity, you know, in that property. So if you're really buying it below market value, you will be sitting with equity. So let's say if you bought it for 500,000, then it means you're sitting with the equity of 100,000. So that equity can be used now, you know, when you're selling this property, then you can sell it at the profit of 100,000, because remember you bought it at 5, and then I'm selling at the market value of 600,000 because that's where the market is. So I can then make 100,000, obviously without taking cost into play. And then the other thing is that I can be able to refinance that 100,000. So I bought it at 5 and my market value is 6, and I bought it via bond. So I can go to the bank and say, bank, I want to refinance this equity, the 100,000 that is sitting there, and then they can be able to give you that 100,000. Maybe you can fix other things, buy another property, put a deposit, whatever the case is, you know. So that also is a very major benefit of buying below market value. So yeah, I hope this will definitely assist you in your property buying journey so that at least it gives you some insights to it. So it's just a simplified version. I'll be doing more and more of these videos as I get technical around other aspects, but I just want to also accommodate those that may be buying these properties for the first time, so that you can have all of this understanding. Even if you've been buying property, sometimes we forget these things, so it's always just to remind you on that, right? So I hope that you're going to you're going to have an amazing and incredible day, and you definitely enjoyed all of this information. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, so press that red button there and subscribe, and please tell everybody else to subscribe as well. A lot of content that is in this YouTube channel just specifically for you around your personal finances and property investment journey, so to speak. So I hope that you have a wonderful day. Gavin Mkhabela, I'm signing out. See you on the flip side.